Celtics Beat is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
All right, and welcome in everybody. Evan Valenti solo. No Adam Kaufman this week. He is on vacation enjoying the beautiful countryside of Maine. So Adam, have a great time. I only mentioned that because I think it was maybe a month or two ago Adam was up there and someone had recognized him from this podcast. So I'm hoping that someone that's out there that's a fan of this pod maybe spots him around wherever town in Maine he's in. I'm not going to give that away. I just know he's in the state. And with that, we bring on a fellow Mainer, Chad Finn from the Boston Globe. I was thinking about this show and I was trying to figure out how I wanted this to go. And we're in the deadest of dead times, I think, during the content creation season. Football, thankfully, is going to carry us the next 6 months. But, it's a little stale. So I want to take a different, take on this particular show. And with Chad, hello, how are you?
Hey, Evan, how's it going?
Doing well. Thank you for asking. I wanted to start this show in a little different spot, and I promise there's a reason why I'm asking it, and I will come out and fully admit that it doesn't come as a shock to anybody, but I am a Celtics fan that happens to run a Celtics podcast. I would like to think I'm on the more objective side than not. I try and keep the fanhood down as much as I possibly can. But I want to open this up, Chad, because it's going to help me frame this discussion a little bit. Are you a Celtics fan?
I grew up one. I grew up in the Bird era. Can't really be nowadays, as a columnist. I mean, I do have an opinion, but, I'm supposed to root for the teams. I kind of take the Bob Bryant approach. He told me once that, you don't openly root for the teams, but it's fine to acknowledge that it's good for everybody when they're doing well, that you love to see them do well because everybody's reading what you write. Everybody's happy around town. I when I think of that line, everybody's happy around town, I think of what it was like after the parade, walking around Boston. The newspaper or the website's making money and it's all good for everybody. So that's kind of how I look at it. I'm not somebody who is negative to be negative. I can be when I believe it, and I believe that's the approach to take. But for the most part, I just kind of follow that feeling that Bob always had, that mindset that, it's a good thing to be able to cover this and to be around teams like this and to be able to make those memories and share them with your readers and the people in your life who are real, true fans.
Yeah, and this year, obviously, something to celebrate about pretty much every step of the way. And I get the idea of being negative to be negative, right? I mean, that sells, especially in Boston. I mean, the Felger and Mavs ratings, when they come out every single quarter, it's like, yep, this is just how this town loves to talk about sports. It's a great
15 years of it with them. Yeah. I actually talked to Michael earlier today. Yeah. Just about their ratings run. And it validates everything they do. And my colleague Dan Shaughnessy, I think, would be regarded as negative mostly and a little bit cynical, maybe a lot cynical. And, he's you look and every column he writes shoots the number one on the Globe website. So it's a feature, not a bug of this Boston sports market.
Yeah, and as the guy from the other end of the pike, I'm down here on the west side of Massachusetts, a little bit more laid back, a little less stressful out here in terms of your coverage. Again, trying to be balanced and everything. I get the idea of, not everything is sunshine and rainbows all the time, but not everything is also falling apart at the same time. It's like, with the Patriots, Joe Milton has a great, throw for a touchdown. Everybody's like, oh, he's better than Drake May. Oh my goodness. It's like, oh,
yep.
Oh my God. I know. And look, I like Greg Bedard a lot. I've been following Bedard for a long time. He made a lot of, headways with just the way the practice went the other day. And obviously that gets picked up by everybody. And now it's the Patriots stink. Obviously this is a rebuilding thing. It's going to take a while, right? They're not going to be perfect right now, but there are, you watched the game Thursday night. There were some positives. That's all I'm saying. And we can always highlight those. But what's interesting is I think sometimes the community or the local angle sometimes can help shape the national angle around certain things. And I mean, look, you've been paying attention. Most of this audience, if not all of this audience, has been paying attention to how much negative press Jayson Tatum collected just during the Olympics, right? I was legitimately blown away, Chad, by how much coverage Jayson Tatum got just around the Olympics and his did not play coach's decisions. Did that, like, the fact that it generated news cycles completely floored me. Did it surprise you?
I think to the degree that it's a constant story day after day, but it was also sort of self-inflicted by Steve Kerr, where he doesn't play him against Serbia the first time, and he says, what was his quote? I feel like an idiot. But he also kind of explained it was matchup based. So you're left wondering when they play Serbia again, will Tatum play? Will he see like cursory minutes, or will Kerr actually prove to be a hypocrite and really, wasn't matchup based at all? He just didn't play in that game. And as it turned out, he didn't play in the game before the gold medal game against Serbia either, with the big comeback. And so I guess you give Kerr credit for sticking to his guns there. But in terms of the national response to that, it was I think it comes from two places. It was over the top, which is sort of the hot take, first take kind of culture that we have right now, where the loudest take gets the most attention. And that's also certainly true locally. The other thing was kind of shocking. I mean, it was a ready-made story for this because Jayson Tatum was just had his coronation. They won the NBA title. All that talk about can Jalen and Jayson coexist, where some people have written 50 columns about that, or 50 blog posts, or done 50 podcasts on it through the years. That's gone now. They coexisted, and I thought, I've been rewatching a lot of the Celtics playoff games, like the ones with great endings, like Drew Steele or, White hitting the corner three. And, we think about how Tatum struggled with his 3-point shooting in the playoffs, and he certainly did, but he hit so many big shots and made so many big plays along the way that it should have been no question that, yes, Jayson Tatum, 3-time first team All-NBA, champion now, is a core player on Team USA, and it just didn't work out that way. And most people aren't going to sit down and think about that and say, well, it's kind of tough to see where the minutes come from if you're going with the older guys and this is their farewell tour with Curry and LeBron and Durant. Well, Tatum probably would have played a lot if Durant hadn't come back from his injury. He probably would have started. He certainly wasn't going to take LeBron's minutes. And so you start thinking about it logically, and there weren't a lot of minutes in a 40-minute game to go to him because of the way the rest of the roster was constructed. But on the other end of it, it's a shame he had 2 DNPs because that never should have happened. And so it's the whole big picture of it was set up as the absolute perfect multi-day argument for sports talk radio and for all those shows you see in the morning on ESPN or FS1. And I think that's why it carried for so many days like it did, especially because it recurred where, again, he did not play against Serbia twice.
Yeah, and I wonder if that was communicated to him like prior to him joining the team. I think that's something where maybe there wasn't a clear, concise plan for what Tatum was going to be. And he gets there, and again, you can always make an argument for minutes and where they should be distributed and whatever. And you got all timers, right? I mean, LeBron, Curry, and Durant are all timers. I mean, they're on everybody's. I mean, they're all three of them are top 75 guys. LeBron is either 1, 2, or 3, depending how you want to rank them. Durant is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, scoring, shooting small forward in the history of the league, and Steph's the greatest shooter of all time. So, these guys are all timers. There's no shame in that. But if it could have been conveyed to Tatum, like, hey, look, this is really their last hurrah here, and we're doing everything we can to support these 3 guys.
Yeah, this is the farewell tour for them.
And if that's communicated prior, I think maybe we have less of this going on. I think there's less of this, because maybe Tatum's like, I knew this was, going to be the case coming in. I'm here. I'm part of the Stay Ready group. We can throw a little Celtics thing in here. I'm going to be part of that Stay Ready group in case Coach Kerr needs me. I'll be ready.
He's O'Shea. Is that what he is?
Yeah,
he's
right.
Sweet. Lamar Stevens for part of the season.
Sure. Delano Banton at one point was part of the Stay Ready group. We can keep trading names here. But I just don't think it was communicated to him. And I think he expected coming off the last time he played with Team USA to have a pretty big role. And again, my point being is as we try and place blame pie, because that's another big thing that a lot of people like to do, I do think Kerr has to own a lot of this. And I think, frankly, Chad, he was bailed out by the comeback win, specifically Steph Curry, LeBron James, and a little bit of Durant and a little bit of Embiid at the end of the game.
A little bit of Embiid, yeah.
He was bailed out by 2.5 guys from having to answer a lot of tough questions when the clocks finally hit 0 and USA was moving on, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they had a hard time, like I mentioned it before, they had a hard time rebounding even with Embiid on the court. And the argument for playing Embiid was he's a body on Jokic. But then you start seeing LeBron handling Jokic pretty well in the paint. And you realize that maybe Embiid's a little bit more of a detriment out there, even with the skills that you think you need, than you realize. I mean, he couldn't go get the ball, and there were offensive rebounds, put back, second chances. It was like watching the Knicks in the playoffs when Hartenstein seemed to get every other offensive rebound before all the injuries caught up to them, and that's an extremely frustrating thing. It's been a flaw of the Celtics that they corrected this season, but in recent years that was a flaw, giving up offensive boards. And I think Tatum for this team would have really helped in that regard. And I also think it's kind of insulting to insinuate that all his value is as a scorer, because the Celtics are champions in large part, I think it's fair to say in large part, because he made the necessary sacrifice. He learned to play a little bit more team basketball. The vision that pops in my head is the behind the back bounce pass to Horford for the key 3-pointer against the Pacers. He tried to do the right thing. Sometimes he takes sidestep threes you don't want him to take. Sometimes he'll take a heat check. His shooting was off, but this is a complete player who understands how to play and wants to win, and has gotten past that point where I think he and Jalen both once thought, I have to score for us to win, and that's not the case anymore. It's more of a trust in their teammates. And so he had that great growth during the playoffs, during the season, and it felt like he was at the absolute pinnacle coming off these the championship, getting the max contract, and then he goes to the Olympics and he's treated like the kid who looked to his own shot first and second and couldn't do anything else to help the team. That's just not true. I think he could have. I tried to figure out where the minutes were supposed to come from for him, because it is hard. It was a tough job for Kerr. A lot of people would say like a guard. I don't think that's it. I think Devin Booker really acclimated himself as a role player and accepted that role really well. And you have to validate Kerr's decision to play him, but I think he could have taken some of those Bam minutes. I wonder if Joe Mazzulla's on that staff rather than Eric Spoelstra, whether maybe Tatum would have gotten those minutes with the other two centers already on the roster. Maybe he just plays a little bit more for Durant or that sort of thing. But the bottom line to me is he should not have had DNPs with being the player that he is right now, no matter what all of the other factors with the construction of that team and it being focused around the old guys was. It was embarrassing for him, and he shouldn't have been put in that situation.
I do want to get sort of back to more Tatum discussion, but I think what drove me nuts later on, and it's people starting to point this out, is again, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I didn't see every second of every game. I will hand up in the air. I didn't catch all of it. I caught a good amount of it, especially the ones that mattered. And loved every second of it. It was a blast. But one of the things that drove me crazy was I don't think there was a ton of time where Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Jayson Tatum shared the floor at the same time.
Yeah.
When you look back at why some of these teams are like, why is Yabusele awesome with France? Because he plays with these guys all the time.
Yeah.
And yet you're coming off an NBA season where this team just won 64 games. And these guys play together for 100 games. They have a ton of and it was super evident to me, and I forget the exact time and situation where this happened, but there was a play where I want to say Jokic to the ball on the left baseline. He's got it kind of above his head. He picked up his dribble, and Drew Holiday shot down, hands up, coming at him fast to try and double him. And the way the Celtics played that, everybody would rotate around.
Right.
And nobody rotated his guys. So his guys at the top of the key with nobody on him. And Jokic, who, again, I keep using the Greg Popovich quote because it just is the best way to describe how good of a passer Jokic is. You have to bring the double team from where he can't see it. So he just, he gets blindsided because you can't blindside him. The guy's amazing. And he just was like, oh, yeah, okay. And sure enough, three-pointer. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, if Tatum and White run the floor at the same time, they might have been able to close that gap a little bit. And that's if I have one, if I had my biggest frustration after this is all over was that exact idea. We praise all these other teams and for good reason, right? Oh, it's so great that these guys have so much synergy and chemistry and they just know how to play together. And we just throw this hodgepodge. And I'm not saying hodgepodge like it's like a bad term here. It's just kind of thrown together. It's like, oh yeah, we'll throw LeBron, Steph, and like, we'll just take all these guys and they'll just kind of figure it out. And luckily for the U.S., it usually works out more often than it doesn't. But those little times where you're like, yeah, if there was a little more continuity here, plays like that wouldn't happen. And yet we didn't see a minute of that. And that, Chad, at the end of the day, that drove me the craziest out of all of it. Because that's something I completely don't have an answer for. I don't understand why that wasn't thrown around.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And, you see the connection that Curry and Durant still have from their time in Golden State. You see a guy like Jamal Murray really struggle for Canada. And part of that, I think, is he didn't have Jokic. See the connections that these players have built in already before they go to the Olympics. It's really fascinating to see where they succeed and where they struggle without pieces that they're working with. And Team USA starting lineup wasn't great defensively when you would have Embiid out there who wasn't in the best shape to start the tournament, wasn't that interested in moving, kept having communication issues with Durant. We saw that in the Serbia game where they both ended up on Jokic and Jokic just hits the guy underneath for a layup. And then, Curry's not a good defender. Booker's defensive ability, his efforts there, and he dogged guys up and down the court during the tournament, which I think wore some lesser guards out, but he's not. You wouldn't call him an above average defender. You could have put Holiday, White, and Tatum out there for a short spurt and been incredibly switchable. One of the problems they ran into against Serbia was they weren't getting the 3-point shooters when they built that 14-point lead because they weren't rotating, like you said, and guys were not used to communicating with other guys, and weren't the greatest defensive players in the first place. I think those three guys would have played spectacularly together, and I know part of that is that you can put Drew Holiday with anybody on earth and he'll fit in. It was funny just watching the Olympics, and you see Booker and Durant, and you see LeBron and Davis, and you say, why are the Suns just good? Not a contender, just a pretty good team, and why do the Lakers stink? They would give anything to have a Derek White or a Drew Holiday, let alone either of those guys. And so we saw Derek get a little bit of run early in the tournament. We saw Drew essentially start some games, essentially their sixth man, like their jack of all trades. And if you put those two guys out there with Jayson Tatum, I think the defense would have looked a lot like the Celtics defense this year, which is, again, one of the reasons they're going to be raising a banner on opening night.
But I do want to get this back to Tatum specifically and sort of the coverage around him. And again, Tatum dominates news cycles by not playing, which I think is a unique situation. I don't think there are many guys, if Ant Edwards didn't play, I think people would have figured out, well, he's kind of young, whatever, but he got a lot of minutes. So he got a lot of playing time. Nobody's making crazy assertions because Tyrese Halliburton didn't play. I mean, he made a joke out of it. It's like, look, I got a gold medal to even play. Like, this is great. Nobody went crazy, but I think it's interesting that specific thing, again, dominated news cycles. And I wonder if, the answer is probably a multitude of things. It's probably not just one thing or one thing. It's probably a combination of things. And I can't quite figure out if like Tatum is that big of a lightning rod, if Boston sports in general are just because we're so passionate as fans about all of our teams that we just kind of we're loud and we're passionate about things. So it just gets into the sphere. If it's the NBA and the popularity of the NBA being, look, it's not the NFL. We know it's not the NFL. We got that. The NFL literally makes a day out of the schedule day that the NBA tried to end
Right.
Thursday, but like to no avail. Nobody really cares. Like it's just like how many national TV games are there? The Celtics have 36, by the way. And we're not going to even talk about that because it's like who cares? I like the Larry Bird quote. There's 41 at home, 41 away. We'll see it when it happens. Like that's
Right.
Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, you just go against the numbers. You against the numbers, that's it. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks. With as little as 4 correct picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000. That's right, $10 into $1,000. It's that easy. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football season in September. 4 weeks of free wins, 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss the deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September is gone, when September ends. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long with Prize Picks. Patrick Mahomes, what do you think of this one? Patrick Mahomes for more than 4,300 passing yards. And Aaron Rodgers, listen, he has to really step it up. Aaron Rodgers for more than 3,750 passing yards. Yeah, I think both of those can happen. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, run your game.
Why is Jayson Tatum and his not playing dominant in the news cycle, in your opinion? Is it because he's a top 5 player in the league and that's what that attention gets? It's because Boston people are so adamant, or is it the NBA's popularity, or is it a combination of all three of these things?
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of things. Your friend Brian Barrett just texted me actually a FanDuel thing that came out today where it didn't have Tatum in the top 10 players in the league. So it gets engagement. I think one of the Devin it's basically the guys who played well at the Olympics ahead of him. But Curry's in there, LeBron's in there. I mean, Booker. Yeah, it's and that plays into the fact that Celtics fans react to this stuff. It gets engagement, it gets clicks, it gets impressions. It becomes something where the response carries from day to day rather than just petering out. There are other factors. I mean, Kendrick Perkins is probably has the worst takes of any NBA analyst. He has a prominent gig and he's an ex-Celtic. So that plays into it, I think, a little bit. And the biggest one is just it felt like Tatum was still on everybody's minds. The Celtics had just won the title. Felt like his culmination, but there was still a little hint of, are we sure he's the guy? Because Jalen got the Finals MVP and the Eastern Conference MVP. And so here we are a couple weeks later. And this guy who we thought had been elevated into the elite in the NBA, who is unassailable now at this point, all of a sudden he's, I don't want to say being humbled, but all of a sudden he's, dealing with taking some lumps because he's not playing when he probably felt like, I think his fans probably felt like this was going to be another part of that culmination, the coronation for him as superstar of superstars. I mean, he's the only guy on the team who was first team All NBA this year. It was easy to assume that, and that he was going to be a guy in Team USA. And for all the reasons we talked about, it didn't work out that way for him. So there's just so many elements to the particular story that makes it enticing to ESPN and to Fox and, to columnists looking to get a reaction from their readers.
Even for FanDuel, who's like kind of not even in this game, but still kind of just trying to generate content. And it's
sure.
Like, speaking of Barrett, I had Barrett's show on, was last week. I don't know, all weeks blend together now, but I was listening. It was him and Justin Termini, and they kind of led with this. And, I was just curious as a guy who hosts a national radio show, what his opinion was on it. And he was like, this is crazy that Jayson
Yeah.
Tatum isn't playing, and it's like this is insane that this guy can't get minutes, and all the excuses that Kerr comes up with. This is crazy. Like, and I'm like, so this is not just like a Boston like self-absorbed
Not
thing.
just us. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what
Yep.
really like I loved that. I texted Barrett because I was like, "Hey man, this was really great. I just want to commend you on having a different voice other than the Boston echosphere of like just all of us chatting and being angry about this. Like, because we had Barrett on our show the week prior and talk about the same exact thing. It's like, what's going on? It's
Yeah.
great. It's good to know that there's like at least some level heads out there nationally that can kind of sort their way through this. And I love Terman. Him and Eddie Johnson do a great
They're
job.
great. Yeah.
They're so fun, and that show is awesome. But I was fun to hear a national perspective on that because again, I just feel like it's a lot of the same voices dominating the same space. And again, I guess for me, this is the territory that comes with being one of the premier franchises in the league with one of the best players, and like this is just what's going to come with it. And maybe we all need to embrace this. Maybe Tatum needs to be like, you know what, like yeah, I'm going to be a lightning rod for everything. And I mean, look, him and Jalen, pretty much since they've gotten here, have been lightning rods for things of other discussions, right? Of, as you said, like, can they coexist together? That conversation drove me absolutely bananas
Me
for
too,
years.
man.
It's ridiculous. Has always been ridiculous. And like, ask anybody that really knows anything about basketball. It's like, yeah, these two guys, if you put the right team around them, they will be fine. And guess what? Here we are. But maybe this is what comes with being the face of the league. I think so many people are trying to force certain guys down our throats, like whether it's Anthony Edwards, and I love Ant. He's great. It's a little too early for Ant, I think, but he's got a shot.
We've seen a lot of examples of it being too early for Ant.
Yeah, he's
including
gonna be,
the Olympics.
Yeah, he's going to be a special player. It's going to take time. We need to allow him to get to that point. Devin Booker is another great example. He gets into the NBA Finals. He's feeling great, but then the only thing people remember from the NBA Finals is the alley-oop, and it's Giannis dropping 50 in a Game 6 to win. Like, that's what we remember. And he's a huge face of the league. Jokic is a huge face of the league. The league is way more international now than it's ever been. I mean, look, if I'm on the Spurs, I would have already signed Yabusele to a contract already to be on our team for this year because the chemistry there is obviously pretty good. Wembanyama is the next big thing. But maybe this, like all this vitriol that Tatum is getting, maybe this is what comes with being the American face of basketball. I mean, Steph, people gave him a hard time until he won. I mean, LeBron still gets a hard time, even though he's like at worst the second best player of all time. Like maybe
he's only won 4.
Yeah. Maybe this is what comes with the territory of like maybe collectively we all just need to embrace this and say, look, like this is because he's the top player in America. This is what's going to happen, and we all need to embrace the fact that we're so lucky to have the best American basketball player playing for our local team. Maybe that's it. Am I wrong?
No, not at all. I mean, certainly you can find a positive out of it too. I mean, I read at least 3 columns this week, excluding my own, using the phrase "vengeance tour." And it really does feel like that's possible with 15 of the 17 guys coming back. And who knows, maybe O'Shea could end up back here too. He's still out there. And the fact that they're probably going to be the most motivated defending champion that we've seen in a long time because of all the nonsense that's come after they won, whether Jalen's frustrations with Team USA basketball or all the stuff that Tatum had to endure by getting those 2 DNPs over there and all the conversation around that, which he acts like he doesn't hear it and he handles it really well, but he does hear it. He kind of revealed that after they won with the what are you going to say now? Is that what his phrase was? So
yeah.
Maybe
like,
this
it's corny. It's like, well, I don't know. This guy's been getting his ass kicked verbally for 7 years. I think he can equal out to say a couple things.
Right. But you know what, too? I mean, just a little bit off the topic, but you mentioned that it's been nonsense with Jalen and Jayson for a long time. One of the most satisfying things about sports, about being a sports fan or about covering a particular team, is when the guys that have been here for a while actually come through. The most satisfying thing to me about the 2004 Red Sox was that Pedro Martinez got a World Series here. His contract was up. You didn't know if he was going to be back. He had been through so much. Yankees are my daddy, and Grady leaving him in and all that. And for them to for them to overcome that, that was the biggest thing more than 86 years or anything else to me, was seeing guys like him and Manny Ramirez and people like that who had been here for Derek Lowe, Jason Varitek win. And that was the same thing with this. The Celtics did it the right way. They obviously had to make some changes. I think a big reason that Tatum and Jalen became more willing to share the ball was because they have a trust in Drew Holiday and Derek White that they just couldn't quite muster for Marcus Smart. The ball, I love Marcus. Ball always found him in the big moments. Sometimes he came through, sometimes he didn't, but the ball always found him. And to see those two guys with the ups and downs and the Kyrie years and the Gordon Hayward injury and IT and Kemba Walker and everything that had come in the build up to them finally winning, it doesn't get more satisfying than that. And the frustration, you shouldn't be having any frustration right now. You should still enjoy that. But because of the weird things that have happened after the season with USA Basketball and Tatum, it feels like, doesn't feel like a setback, but it feels like we didn't get quite enough time to celebrate it as we should have this offseason without, having a little bit of controversy mixed in. But ultimately, that controversy might help them do it again this year. Yeah,
there's nothing. I mean, as guys have been watching the Patriots for the past 20 years, having a chip on your shoulder is never the worst thing in the world.
Right.
The documentary, the Last Dance documentary, showed just that Michael Jordan, not saying hi to him in a restaurant was enough to give him the motivation. Like Brady can go through this, the quarterback's taken in front of him. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions. You can name all 14 receivers that are drafted in front of him, and now he's a top 5 wide out in terms of monetary value in the league. And Paul Pierce always
rattled off the guys picked ahead of him.
Yeah. And still Paul's still fighting battles where it's like, again, you weren't the one thing that kills me about the new generation. And I like the fact that they're passionate about things and they want to, there's so many avenues now to learn the game that weren't available when I was younger. And certainly when a lot of people that listen to this podcast were younger, but the one thing that kills me is the lack of respect for the guys that have come previously. And it's like, oh yeah, Paul Pierce wasn't any good. It's like, you weren't watching the games. Like if you went back and watched the game, I know he doesn't look like the most athletic guy in the floor, but he still found ways to score. And that's a skill. And it was a unbelievable skill and just has gotten lost with time. And it's really, that stuff actually bothers me. And if, what's fun is I went back during COVID, I watched, and this is gonna drive me crazy, but my brain's got a cajillion things in it. Did the Celtics play Kareem in the Bucks in 74 or 76?
74. Okay. 76 was Phoenix.
All right. So I watched the 74 finals not recently, but during COVID when live sports weren't a thing and I had to find some outlet, right? And I remember watching those playoffs and having just a completely different appreciation for JoJo White. I'm like, you could take that guy and put him in any era and he would be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And
he could run forever.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And I'm laughing. I'm like, Dave Cowan's trying his best. He's 6'8", maybe 6'9", maybe. And he's got to guard Kareem, who's an absolute alien. And how every play wasn't getting the ball to Kareem, I'll never understand. I just never got it. And then you're watching Havlicek literally never stop running ever. The guy is constantly in motion.
It's like Steph.
Yeah,
it's the
exactly.
Same as exactly. All over the place. Yeah.
It's amazing. So that stuff bothers me when you're like, oh yeah, those, but anyway, we got way off topic here. Way off topic. Quick break from today's show to tell you today's show is brought to you by Game Time. I remember first time I went to a Sox game when I was a kid, the Milwaukee Brewers were in town. And literally my only memory of that is Mo Vaughn, my favorite player at the time, hit a home run. It was with my grandparents. It was the only time he went to Fenway Park. It was a really special memory for me. Great memories of your own today with the help of Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. And the prices on Game Time, the app, that go down and the closer it gets to first pitch. And my parents do this all the time. They like to go wait till the first pitch is gone and then go to whatever ticket box office and just see what they have left and just snack up great deals. Do that with Game Time with last minute deals, all in prices and views from your seat, lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And literally, folks, Sox, red hot. They have had a fun season so far. They're in this great ride of a 2024 with no expectations, kind of hanging on the wild card. We love that. Use Game Time to get to Fenway or whatever stadium you want to go to throughout the rest of the summer. Again, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it, they got it. And you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. So make sure you take the time and take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I want to get us back to the Celtics and how they're covered nationally and locally and all that stuff. Because like the local angle, we all know. I know what it is. I look, I'm on the other side of the state, but I know what's going on. I got it. It does bother me. But again, I get the why it's being done and everything. But I look at, again, you as soon as things happen, you got everybody kind of talking, everything's coming out, and you hear from Bob Cousy, which is always my favorite thing because Bob's always going to have an opinion about something. Saying that there's like a Celtics bias around the league, and that's what Kerr is going through. He's going through this. Do you believe that exists? You've been chatting with people throughout your time, whether it's broadcasters, players, coaches, etc. Do you think there's a Boston Celtics bias out there? Because I actually don't seem to think there's one. There was 3 guys on this team.
No. I mean, Kuz is great, and one of the things I admire about him is he's still right on top of the current NBA for 96 years old. I always like that about Tommy too. Like Heinsohn was obviously from a different generation, from a couple different generations. He coached that 74 and 76 team we were talking about to titles, and he was a player and a player rep and a broadcaster and all these things, but he had a great appreciation for the current players. He might bitch about the 3-point line or something like that, or complain that they're not, running as much as he wants to run. Run, Walter, run. But he had great respect for the skill set that Jayson Tatum had, or Steph Curry's shooting ability, or whatever it is. And I admire that from the older guys, from the other generation, because the people I hear from often from that same generation are their emails will start, I grew up with Bill Russell, Heinsohn, and Cousy, and Jayson Tatum doesn't play defense and he doesn't rebound and all he wants to do is shoot threes. And I'm just like, you're not watching the games. You're listening to sports radio and you're listening to what Felger and Maz are telling you about Jalen and Jayson, and you're regurgitating it to me because it jives with what you want to feel about the current NBA game, because you're not young anymore and it's not the game you grew up with and it's different, and so it can't be as good. And man, I grew up in the Bird era. Okay, I love Bird and McHale and Chief, and Dennis Johnson's probably my favorite non-Larry player of all time, but I can recognize that so much about the game now is better. You watch like a highlight reel. I was watching Magic Johnson highlights the other night because it was his 65th birthday the other day. I still think he's the best passer of all time, him and Larry right up there, but the defense wasn't as good as it is now. The players are nowhere near as physical as they are now. And they talk about the game like from 35 years ago as like everybody was the bad boy Pistons beating the crap out of each other. And it's just not true. They tried to play defense, but the players weren't as athletic or as fit or as well-rounded as they are now. And that's the truth. And a lot of fans from a different generation have a hard time recognizing that, and that is amplified by sports radio telling you there's always a problem with something. There's Jalen and Jayson don't get along, or these guys don't want to pass, or whatever it happens to be. And so those things, it's kind of a cycle, and it's a frustrating one, because if you can just step back and look at what your eyes are telling you, these guys bust their ass. They play the right way. They just won the championship by playing unselfish team basketball and coming through again and again and again. And it's a great product. And I kind of feel bad for people from a different generation who don't appreciate it. But I'm also kind of like, the hell with them. They don't know what they're missing.
Yeah, a couple more things before we get out of here, Chad. And one of the things I kind of referenced it earlier about Celtics and their nationally televised games, and here we are in the middle of August. We're talking about Jayson Tatum and talking about basketball. And, it's not on the horizon for a while. And, the C's have a ton. They're the fourth most national television games behind the Lakers, the Warriors, the
Warriors
Knicks.
have a bunch. Yeah.
It's the Steph show. And honestly, I get it. Totally
Don't
get
roll an ankle.
Yeah, I know.
It's
right?
going to be the Pozemski show.
Yeah, well, I love B Pods. He's great.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga and the rest of that team. Look, I'm ready. The C's obviously very well represented nationally in terms of seeing the product on television. And again, it's nice to be the champs for sure. But with everything being said, it just feels like to me that Adam Silver must love the fact that the Celtics are relevant because, again, here we are in August when things aren't supposed to be going on and we're supposed to be football, and yet here we are dominating news cycles. We're talking about basketball. We're talking about the NBA. We're talking about all this stuff. How much do you think Adam Silver loves the fact that the Celtics are super relevant right now?
Adam Silver loves the fact that the Celtics are super relevant. That LeBron and Anthony Davis are on the Lakers, so you can still put them on TV even though they're mediocre as a team, and that the New York Knicks suddenly are relevant with their Villanova alumni squad. It doesn't get much better than that for the NBA, just in terms of viewership markets. New York being number one, LA number two, but also history, tradition, dedicated fan bases. The league is in a great spot with that sort of stuff right now. And you look at the teams that, consider themselves serious contenders. I think the league was really happy Wemby ended up with the Spurs, which is a team that it's not the biggest market, but it's one with a great basketball history. And the league, if you're not going to end up in the bigger markets, they certainly like their best young players to end up in cities with a tradition. So I think if you ask Adam Silver right now, he's got a lot of things he's dealing with. The TNT situation with Amazon is a headache, a few other things. But I think if you asked him about just specifically the state of interest in the NBA, he would be pretty thrilled with everything.
Yeah, we're just missing the Bulls, really. If you want to talk about the only things we're missing, Chicago being
Zach LaVine's not going to elevate him, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be tough. It's tough. But we can't win them all. You got to have somebody's got to lose, and unfortunately, the Bulls have been doing a lot of that recently, and I don't think it's going to turn around anytime soon. Unfortunately, last thing, because I think this is an interesting point. Between all of the four major teams in Boston, we have the Bruins, who are trying to figure out what the next step for them is. You have the Red Sox, who, I mean, I could go on for an hour about how much I have a problem with what they're doing. But they're in a state of flux, obviously. They're not sure what to do. They're cutting costs, if they're going to invest in the future, if the big three down in I think they're up in AAA now, if they're going to be coming anytime, whatever. Like, there's a lot going on there. The Patriots are young. Drake May, obviously, that 55-yard bomb Thursday night that was just off the fingertip. Well, out of the grasp of Javon Baker.
Heck of a throw, yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, I haven't seen one of those in a while.
No, I know. I can't tell if May looks really good, just athletically, or it's just the Mac Jones effect still. By comparison, everybody's going to look great. I think May looks. I think it's great reason to be enthusiastic about him, though.
Absolutely, I was thrilled with the second preseason game, but it seems like to me, Celtics are the king, quote unquote, of the city in terms of just from a recognition standpoint, from a talking standpoint. In your opinion, how long can this last? Can they hold on to it? Is this going to be like Larry Bird and the big three in the 80s with the Celtics, that this is the team of Boston for an era, or is this going to be just a flash in the pan once football becomes way more relevant? They're going to be next year's whatever.
Yeah, it's I don't know if you should ban the term second apron on your podcast, but might want to. I'm a little not down, but I'm a little skeptical that they're going to be able to keep this 900 million roster, whatever it is, together for the long term once those penalties start to hit after next season, with the team being for sale and you know, some people getting involved with that, probably, that you might not want them to be involved with owning a team you care about. I think we're going to probably hear some names that make you say, good Lord, I hope that guy doesn't buy the team, or I hope that conglomerate doesn't buy the team. But for the short term, and that is next season and maybe the season after, and then we'll see beyond that, they're loaded. And if they stay healthy and Kristaps comes back and is ready to go whenever that time comes, January maybe, they should be in a position to make another run at it. And they know so much more now than they did going into this season. They know how Drew Holiday fits with them. They know the roles of their bench players and what they can do. Joe Mazzulla has grown exponentially as a coach in his 2 years. I think you can afford to be cautious during the regular season. Now, Joe wants to win by 50 every night, but there are nights, I think, well, you'll rest Holiday, who's 34 years old now, and maybe give Tatum more of a breather than he wants, and just make sure that when it comes time to defend that title in the playoffs, that you're at maximum health and ready to go. So, but they're in an absolute enviable spot this year and probably next year too. And then, we'll see how things shake out in terms of being able to pay everybody.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's going to derail this team from being just the talk of the town for a decade is Drake May possibly being just the next best guy. But, I think we got a little while.
Yeah.
The thing that drives me crazy about the Drake May experience already is the amount of people that just want to speed everything up and get this it's like no. This is an investment at number 3 overall. The team better get this right. This is a huge, look at Trey Lance. Trey Lance never had a shot, and that's not his fault. It's San Francisco falls in love with him, and then he ends up in Dallas and hasn't done anything. And the one thing I'll say, and I thought about this today, I was listening to Barrett driving my car to go pick up a couple of errands, and one of the things that's driving me nuts is certain people who are quick to clown the Patriots for trying to protect Drake May for as long as they can. And they're like, well, this is clearly the Packer way. I'm like, okay, I'm 34 years old. The Packers have had 3 quarterbacks in my life. That's something to envy, guys. That's probably a good idea. The Packer way isn't a bad idea. And everybody that wants to clown, Mayo and Alex Van Pelt for doing something different. I love Michael Lombardi. I do. I subscribe to a lot of what he says, but his railing of how the Patriots are handling Drake May, and I'm like, look, you're not in the building, and you're not in the building anymore.
Right.
Let him figure this out. It's not. Look, we all know Belichick's the greatest. I think I loved watching his teams, but it was time for someone new. Let's give this a shot. And we're not even in the regular season, and it's already a mess. It's relax. So and I just don't get it. And maybe I'm just way more patient, and everybody else isn't. But it's as someone who would like this to be the last quarterback I have to root for a while. I just want to watch Drake May grow and develop. It's okay if he's not taking a kajillion snaps. It's totally fine. If you look at the product, look at his feet, his footwork looks great, looked awesome. Baby steps. It's okay. Rome wasn't built in a day. It just because you drafted him 3rd overall doesn't mean he's going to save your franchise the first day he's here.
Well, it's been kind of absurd with him already in terms of the media reaction around here, where you went from preseason game 1. Are we sure Joe Milton's not better? Joe Milton throws the screen passes at 95 miles an hour. That's why he's not going to be the guy probably ever. They drafted him to trade him for a 4th round pick down the road. And now, May plays well last night, made some throws we haven't seen around here in a while. And all of a sudden, you got to play him over Brissett. There's been these wild swings already, but I think it comes down to media-wise. Felger told me this, talking to him, for something about the Sports Hub's 15th anniversary, he just kind of said offhanded, we need the Patriots to be good again. And it's true, because NFL is just the attention the NFL gets is multiples over another league. You look at the TV ratings, look at Super Bowl still getting 115 million people watching it, more than that compared to like what the NBA Finals or something like that gets. It's just no contest. And I think these people in sports radio, and to a lesser degree doing, what I do, what you do, recognize it's a huge benefit to us if Drake May is good and the Patriots accelerate this, this return to NFL relevance, because they're not going to be very good this year. And I actually kind of admire trading Matthew Judon and having a first year, call Elliott Wolf the de facto GM, having him recognize that this team is what it is. It's not going to be very good, and so we're going to build for the future. That's a pretty mature approach to team building from a guy who's in the job for the first time. But it behooves all of us for this team to get back to being relevant in the NFL landscape again. And so I think we're going to hear a lot more. Drake May has to play. Drake May has to play. And, Mayo kind of left that door open this morning, Friday morning, to that, that job isn't settled yet. So that's only going to play into it more.
Yeah. Thank you, Gerard, for stoking the fire and keeping it going. But for now.
Hey, ex-media guy, right?
Yeah. For now.
Quick Slants alumni.
There you go. Look, it's a long list of Quick Slants alumni. But that being said, Celtics right now still the kings of Boston, and probably will be at least for one more season. And look, we'll see how this goes the rest of the way. That's the Boston Globe's Chad Finn. Chad, thank you so much for joining the program here this afternoon. Want to thank you. Want to thank our sponsors, Game Time and Prize Picks. Again, code CLNS for both. Up to $100 on your first deposit match for Prize Picks. It's a $20 off your first purchase at Game Time. I want to thank all the audience out there. I want to thank everybody involved behind the scenes. Amit, who is just the craziest guy ever. I love that guy. He is amazing. Adam will be back next week with me. Make sure you subscribe to this show on iTunes, on Spotify, on YouTube. We're all over the place. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next time right here on Celtics Beat.